Welcome to Mr. Timeline. I'm your host, Joseph, and today we're going to be talking about the top 10 horror films. These are horror films that strike a chord for me. Of course, this is subjective. This is my own personal list. And so without further ado, and there will be spoiler warnings ahead, so without further ado, let's get into this. Number 10, Ghost Ship. This is a fun, over-the-top horror film that just builds up tension, and like another one on our list here, is very claustrophobic, very uncomfortable, and I believe that is truly what makes a great horror film, is if it truly is terrifying or puts you on the edge of your seat. Ghost Ship is about a team of salvagers who come across the lost ship of the Antonio Graza, a luxury liner that disappeared in the 1960s. And while on board, they start encountering all sorts of supernatural elements, culminating in a final battle between the main hero, Epps, and the mysterious person involved at the core of the story. This film is a fantastic film. It's from Dark Castle Entertainment. I actually put in the same, three films that I truly am a fan of from Dark Castle, which is House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, and Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship sports a phenomenal cast in Gabriel Byrne, Julieta Margulies, Carl Urban in one of his earlier roles, Isaiah Washington. It's got a fantastic cast, and a young Emily Browning from American Gods. It is a fantastic film. Highly recommend it. And if you watch it on DVD, try to solve the puzzle to get the little backstories. There's 4 backstories. It's a fantastic film. I highly recommend it. Number 9, Event Horizon. This is the most insane horror film I've ever watched. Like Ghost Ship, it's a very much a claustrophobic story. Very tense, very build up tension to the point where you're like, oh my god, I can't do this. And it stars a phenomenal cast. It's got Sam Neill, Lawrence Fishburne, a young I can't remember his name all of a sudden. He played Captain Lorca. But anyway, it'll come back to me. Anyway, it's a fantastic film. Highly recommend. The tension builds and builds and builds until the final act of the film. The use of green lighting and minimal lighting really does sell the film as otherworldly. Basically, a team of a scientist who designed a ship called the Event Horizon, and a team from Earth Space Command gets sent out to recover the ship. It was part of an experiment to do faster than light travel by creating a black hole that the ship could fly through to get from point A to point B. What ends up happening is that it disappeared, and then it just magically shows up all these years later. So they've got to go on board the ship and find out what happened. Very interesting horror film. Sam Neill really is an amazing actor, and he has a lot of fun with the part. And this is not his first horror foray. He'd also played the adult Damien in the Third Omen film, so tells you how much of an actor he can be in horror films. Number 8, Krampus. Now this is a very interesting horror film. I really don't know all the actors who are in it. I know the actors, but I don't know their names, which is really bad. I should have done research for this video. But Krampus is a very fun holiday horror film. Occasionally you do get those horror films that are during a particular holiday. Black Christmas, for instance, or Trick or Treat from a few years ago. But this film is a lot of fun. Basically, a young boy is completely disillusioned with Christmas after a very disastrous evening meal with the rest of his crazy family. And he's hurt, upset, and he tears up his letter to Santa, which kills his Christmas spirit. So the demon Krampus shows up and terrorizes the people in this house. It is a very good horror film. It's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. One of the best factors is the creature effects. The creature effects are actually terrifying. They truly are disturbing. But they're done in such a way where it's like, oh my god, this is insane. What am I watching? There's a whole scene with like evil gingerbread cookies. That it makes sense if you watch the film. The special effects are fantastic. The design of Krampus is absolutely amazing. And the ending is enough to make you go, wow, I did not see that coming. Because horror films usually end the same way. Either there's a stinger at the end, or they have a happy ending. Which makes sense. But in this, they don't do that. So Krampus, definitely recommend. Number 7, The Conjuring. Now, as far as supernatural horror films go, this is one of the best ones I've ever seen. Next to another one I'm going to say that's a little farther down this list. This film really builds up tension and really builds up the stakes to the point where the final act of the film is extremely intense, and you're sitting going, I can't look away. This is insane. The film is absolutely fantastic. It stars Patrick Wilson and Tessa Farmiga, I believe is her name, as Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous occult researchers. It spawned several sequels, several other films in that same universe, like the Annabelle movies, and The Nun, which are films I have not seen yet. I've not seen the sequels either, because I thought first one was great. You didn't need a sequel, but Hollywood. What are you gonna do? But this film really does increase the tension to the point where the final act of the film, it's like, oh my god. So yes, The Conjuring, definitely recommended. It's definitely a fantastic horror film, and it's one of those that I call the less is more school of horror films, where it's not in your face horror. It's done in more of a way that's build up tension to the point where the final act really is a good release of the tension. Number 6, The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone movie is infamous in a lot of ways, as well as famous. A film adaptation of the 1960 TV series created by Rod Serling. The Twilight Zone movie is absolutely amazing. It was marred by tragedy. At some point I will do a video going into detail about the tragedy that happened on the set of The Twilight Zone and the aftermath. But the Twilight Zone movie is a fantastic film that really does capture the spirit of the series. The twist endings, the moments of having a really sweet episode in there, because there's 2 of those in there. One's mostly terrifying, and then sweet at the end, and the other was 100% human interest, which is what the Twilight Zone TV series was known for. It's one of those really, really strong films. And the acting is fantastic. Bananas. Absolutely fantastic. It's got some of the best actors of the time. You have actors like John Lithgow, Cab Calloway, trying to remember who else is in it. It's got a huge cast. Dick Miller from Gremlins is in it for a brief moment. It's a fantastic film. I definitely recommend it. The best part is the last part, which is their version of Terror at 20,000 Feet. John Lithgow is truly believable as someone who has a lot of issues. And he does a fantastic job. So I highly recommend it. Number 5. Number 5, Sinister. This is another one of those slow build, tension building films. It stars Ethan Hawke as a true crime writer who has moved into the house where a family was murdered years before. And he discovers some old films, which he starts watching and discovers that nothing is as it seems. This is a very good, terrifying horror film. It builds up the tension, and there's moments where you scream out, you're like, "Oh my god, what did I just see?" Um, it's a fantastic horror film. The twist ending is really good. Now, there's one major complaint among horror fans, and that's the end of the film. There's a little stinger at the end. It doesn't really have any place. It doesn't work. But the movie itself, overall, is a fantastic horror film that truly can be quite terrifying. I definitely recommend it. Again, it's a fantastic horror film. Check it out. Number 4, The Shining. Now, this is a hard one to really pin down because this is a horror film that was remade as a miniseries back in the early 90s. The Shining, though, the Jack Nicholson one is truly terrifying. The one directed by Stanley Kubrick is truly terrifying. I mean, I know that Stephen King hates it and it deviates greatly from the book. But as a film, it is absolutely terrifying. Some of the creepiest moments are well known, like the little twins, the Grady twins. Come play with us, Danny. That is actually truly terrifying. And that's what makes a really good horror film is if it can elicit that response, like, "Oh my god, what the heck am I watching here?" Jack Nicholson, Shelley Long, both do a fantastic job in the parts that they're given. So yes, The Shining. Definitely recommend it. Number 3, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Now, in one of my recent videos, I did a top 10 horror movie villain list, and this is the film that Mr. Dark is from. Go check out that video if you want to know more about him. Basically, Something Wicked This Way Comes is an adaptation from Disney of the Ray Bradbury horror novel. A small town at the end of fall, at the beginning of fall, going into fall season, a mysterious carnival shows up, where pretty much it gives people whatever their hearts desire, but there's a cost. And these little boys discover that something is not right and try to stop the carnival, including having to face off against the evil leader of it, Mr. Dark. Played brilliantly by Jonathan Pryce. The film boasts a pretty good cast of actors, most of which I'm not familiar with their names, but the narration is Ray Bradbury, who plays the narrator, does the narration. James Robards plays the father of one of the characters, and Jonathan Pryce is the villainous Mr. Dark. This is a fun film. It's terrifying, considering it came from Disney. It's actually kind of creepy. But it is a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it. And it's a really good, non-gory horror film. Basically because of the tension built in the film. Number 2, Phantasm. This is a film that actually scared my wife, who is a huge horror fan. This truly terrified her. Mainly because of the little creatures. Basically, the story goes that a young boy, after the death of a friend of his brother's, who he knew really well, he starts to suspect something's wrong with the mortician, the character called the Tall Man. And he slowly uncovers a mystery that involves the Tall Man up to something involving alternate realities. It is absolutely terrifying. The biggest thing that scares people when they watch it is both the Tall Man and these little silver spheres that have the blade and then a drill in the front that kill people. The film has some great, terrifying moments. Excuse me. Namely, the fly scene is absolutely terrifying. It's a good film. I highly recommend it. And be prepared to be absolutely terrified. Number 1, Poltergeist. The original Poltergeist. Not the sequels, not the remake, but the original. This film is truly terrifying, and considering it's directed by Tobe Hooper, it's absolutely fantastic. There are some terrifying moments in this film where it makes you just go, oh my god, what the heck did I just see? The cast does a great job. Judd Nelson is believable as a dad who doesn't know what the hell's going on. Of course, the older woman, can't think of her name all of a sudden, sorry, who played Tangina in it, immediately just, you feel that she knows what's going on. She's pretty on spot for everything. And then on top of that, though, the film is marred by tragedy, which I'm going to go into when I do a horror movie tragedy video, which is going to be a whole series of videos at some point down the road. But yeah, the film series itself is marred by tragedy because of what happened to the little girl played Carol Ann, and then what also happened to the girl played Carol Ann's sister. And it's a great movie, though. It's a great horror film. The tree sequence in particular is absolutely terrifying. I highly recommend it. It is definitely a reason why this is my number 1. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do. And with that being said, this has been Mr. Timeline. I'm your host, Joseph. If you like what you see, please like, subscribe, comment in the comments below. Tell me what topic you'd like me to discuss next. You all have a wonderful day.